hi everyone. Welcome to the second episode of our AI Republic podcast. We're super excited to discuss AI topics with you guys, talk about AI news, and just share our thoughts on the comings and goings around AI. So to start, we'll just reintroduce ourselves. I'm Amber. I'm an AI engineer. And most of my experience is in fintech. I'm really passionate about LLMs and NLP and super excited to be working with Carlo and Doc on this. Carlo, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Carlo. I've been working on making AI uncool again for about 9 years. Mostly right now focused on being the chief AI officer for Skyrocket Studios, which is an advertising agency, and Boost Capital, which is a fintech. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And what about you, Doc?
Hi, I'm Doc Ligot. Well, many hats, but now I'm into AI safety. I represent the Philippines in the international expert panel for AI safety, and I, I continue to be CEO and CTO of Zeralytics, it's a social impact AI company. Yeah, happy to be here, Amber. Episode 2.
Yeah, great. So hopefully you guys were all in episode one, but if you weren't, no worries because we will reshare the link to that. So our first segment for the day is about AI news. So we just wanted to kind of discuss some of the interesting things that have been happening in the AI world over the past week. So why don't we start with this article actually? Carlo, do you want to start us off with this article?
So I'm not even going to try to mention her name, but we did want to focus on a lot of Southeast Asian news related to AI. So this celebrity um, went on Instagram the other day to talk about how she's getting deepfaked. Her voice is being used and cloned to ask people for money, which is kind of a big deal because she's got 9.2 million followers on Instagram alone, right? And she seems um, pretty famous. I have no idea how to measure any of that outside of social media numbers, but this is just going to keep happening, and it seems like her voice is recognizable enough that people would want to, well, one, fake her, but two, want to give her money. How do you guys feel about this?
Reminds me of the Fifth Element, the diva.
Less blue.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like related to what we discussed last week, kind of delving into the topic of AI ethics, right? So where are the like controls here? Does it say in the article if she was able to, take any legal action against this, or it's more of
Um,
parang ni-report niya?
Not yet. I mean, the hard part about this is you still have to figure out who did it first before you take
Yeah.
legal action, right? What I'm hoping is that, this doesn't lead to Malaysia regulating the use of like voice AI things, right? Because I think that's kind of one of the risks with these things happening early on. I think, we already have a lot of laws about like what you can and can't do, especially in terms of like copyright infringement and like using other people's likeness, in every country, right? And I think you still that all that still applies. I don't think you need to like regulate the voice AI things, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're already at a point where you can create a workflow and pretty much create artificial humans on the
Yeah.
fly, subject to cost. Yeah, it's still expensive over time. But so I think it really changes everything. Like I was just giving a talk earlier in a school, and of course I showed them Blue, my own attempt at creating a artificial influencer. And because I think schools right now are still stuck in, do we ban chat GPT or not? They haven't moved on. And I was telling them, hey, look, I can create this in 30 minutes. When are we going to create, AI versions of every teacher here and, have them start conducting classes, and are like shocked,
How
open
did that
mouth.
go?
Then well, I think it started to sink in that they're completely, out of the game, as a school. They didn't have an AI program, and when they were thinking about AI, it's the usual machine learning, data science, and certainly those are important things. But everywhere else, AI is already basically invading the mind space, the mind share, and it was a good wake up call for them, I think.
What
So
age group was it? Like, why are they going to school on a Saturday?
it was an international conference on education. It was
Oh,
so it's mostly teachers, and I was the keynote, and I was
Nice.
telling them, and they gave me very broad directives. No, okay, give us a immerse us in AI and give us a wake up call. Okay, here you go, boom, wake up call. And yeah, I think because I was there the whole morning. When I left, the vice president for academic affairs said we need our faculty trained up as soon as possible.
yeah.
But the details are still hazy on
Right.
exactly what that means. But at least it's a lead. And then on the other hand, I got approached also by another school who was also there and was saying, we need our other faculty need to hear this. So, and it actually, if I can segue immediately, I've been arguing with this online troll for the past 24 hours. And one of the points that the troll made was, why are you trying so hard to evangelize AI? Everyone will jump into AI because that's the demand. And I kind of wonder, really? Because it's already close to 2 years since ChatGPT, and here school's still seeing it for the first time, no? So I feel we need to give it a not so gentle nudge in the right direction. That's all I just wanted to say about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. And actually, something this reminds me of, like related to what you mentioned about parang turning all of the teachers into AI or something. Have you heard of soul machines? Um, it's
Soul
basically,
machines.
yeah, soul machines. I remember I saw this somewhere before, and it's interesting because they say that they are using like AI to generate chatbots,
Mm,
but chatbots that it's almost like a chatbot type avatar. Yeah,
yeah,
soul
yeah,
machine AI assistant. And then you can assign it like a personality,
yeah.
right? So like you can use it via
Hey, is
API,
that
but
Maria Ressa? No, no, no.
parang
With the
you
red
can buy
turtleneck.
rights to use somebody's face, for example. So I found
Wow,
that
this
really
is
interesting
nice.
because they are selling like the rights to buy somebody's like face or likeness or voice, to your point about earlier, right? So
Yeah. Actually, HeyGen, if you go to HeyGen,
Yep.
you can create an animated avatar of yourself. You can a realistic avatar or
oh
cartoon. Yeah, go to and yeah, and click on features. You literally can create a very very lifelike avatar of yourself. Yeah? And it's really amazing. AI avatar, AI voices. Oh, diba? you
You
know,
know, I've tested a lot of these actually. And so far the best one that I've seen that but I haven't been able to play with is the TikTok Symphony. So
TikTok.
TikTok
Okay. Yeah.
funny.
Symphony, hold on, let me just we're going a bit off course here, but I think it's still all related. So TikTok Symphony, let's watch this really quickly. So this is an AI, right?
Hi there, my name is Adrian. Well, not Adrian, but TikTok's latest Symphony digital avatar. I am a custom avatar born from TikTok's latest generative AI technology.
It's too
What I
good.
love about my job here at TikTok is that we're building for the future of creativity and marketing. And today, I'm thrilled to unveil our new Symphony digital avatars right.
Yeah, so like the problem with HeyGen and let's say like Synthesia and DID, which are the top avatar generators, is that it maps the whole face, but it doesn't move the whole face, right? So the TikTok one actually maps the whole face and moves like the appropriate things, and like this is almost too good. Like I almost feel like it's not real, right? Sorry, I almost feel like it's real. It's not real
It
AI.
does look, yeah, a bit, honestly. I'm
Because even,
surprised.
'cause even the hair moves, you know. But yeah, it's we're getting there pretty quickly, right? And I think, you know, because of the pandemic and because of technology, people are just used to having uh, maybe a teacher online, right? So I think that's definitely happening soon, Doc. So maybe you could show them this.
Yeah, I'd like to get, you know, of course, if it's me, I'm not really in the academia. I'd like to collaborate with an actual teacher, create a TikTok avatar, and just multiply them. Ngayon, it's gonna be like what was that? It's gonna be like Clone Wars. Every diba, all of the clone troopers are based off si Boba Fett or Jango Fett. Parang ganon. We'll have a teacher avatar who's like maybe si ano, who's the teacher of the Tarlac mayor? Si ano, I
Oh,
forgot her name. Si Alice Go, 'di ba? Sabi niya, I learned this
Ligot, yeah.
from teacher someone. So let's just create that teacher.
yeah. She should just create that teacher. And, um,
Tying it back together to what you mentioned, Doc and Carlo, right? So there are a lot of they're kind of like two sides of this, right? Like on the one hand, it's easy to use like somebody's voice, like in the news article that you sent, or like somebody's face to create something AI generated without their consent. But on the other hand, like you as a user can also do that for example, like teaching, right? Like education, like Doc mentioned, right? So I guess to go back to the discussion of what Doc was mentioning earlier, right? Like in terms of where we're at now in AI, right? Like GPT has been out for 2 years, right? But some people are still discovering it, are just discovering it
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on kind of the pace of AI in the Philippines? And I think we have an article as well about, just like adoption of AI in Japan that we can discuss later. I think it shows like two of those opposing sides that might be kind of relevant to talk about as well.
Yeah, maybe I can start. So I think B2C retail adoption is pretty good in the sense that if you believe the LinkedIn data, 86% of our knowledge workers already use AI. I'm not saying they use it properly, but they use it. I think Microsoft wanted to use that as a sales pitch to upsell like an enterprise level, platform because they were trying to propagate the fear that everyone's bringing their own AI, you're not going to be secure, blah blah blah. And I think it sort of semi backfired in their face because it turned out to be a positive attribute rather than a negative one. But that being said, B2C is high, not sure how well. B2B, like institutional, not really good, I think. I think everyone's still stuck in privacy, security, hallucination, too much fear. And on the other hand, they also don't trust the cloud vendors, no? Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they want to onboard them onto some enterprise AI. I think Microsoft's the most aggressive Azure AI. So for me, and then you can include every other institution there, government, academe, di ba? I'm not too bullish about institutional adoption. I think what's going to happen is it's going to be adopted from the ground up, just like Microsoft Office. Everyone started using their own pirated version first, and then and then companies started doing enterprise Office 365. Uh, I think maybe it's the way of things. It's a very personal kind of tool. It's not like ano ba, data warehousing, which is very ano, diba? Very corporate. That's what I think, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think, um, because of uh, what we do, I think I have a tendency to overestimate how many people actually use ChatGPT, Midjourney, Gemini, whatever, um, because it's so useful, right? Like once you know how to use it correctly, like there's no reason not to use it every day, right? Like I panicked the other day because I didn't have ChatGPT Plus for some reason, and it turns out like I was overcharged, but for some cloud things on a credit card that was using ChatGPT. So that's how I found out about it because I couldn't work without ChatGPT Plus. But I think this chart, this is the one you were talking about, right, Amber?
No, but it's definitely related. It's actually the article that you sent 2 days ago. But wait, I'll look for
Oh,
it. But yeah, I think we can use that one as well.
this is a study by Reuters Institute. They surveyed and of about 2,000 people in 6 different countries around the world: Denmark, USA, UK, Argentina, France, Japan. And they asked like how many people use ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot daily. And the US is by far the highest at 7%, which is kind of crazy, right? Because like if you use a computer, there's almost no reason not to use ChatGPT every day if you know how to do it properly and you're getting the right results out of it, right? So one,
Yeah.
either they're getting a lot of wrong results, or they don't know how to use it properly, or I guess there's a real possibility that maybe they don't need it. Maybe they're just much better on a lot of things without ChatGPT than I am. But there's people who use it weekly, and again, the US is highest at 11%. But like monthly and once or twice, like all this stuff afterwards, like pretty much you don't use it, right? Monthly is who uses ChatGPT once a month? Like, what are you doing? You're making taglines or something once a month. Yeah, I think like still surprised by how low the adoption rates are around the world, but super optimistic that like it's that means like we could still, let's say the Philippines or every other country in Southeast Asia can still get ahead of everyone else in the world if we just like focus on ChatGPT learning at the grassroots level, like Doc was saying.
Yeah, I agree. And even demystifying kind of what ChatGPT is or how it works, not necessarily going into like the nitty-gritty of like architecture and all of those things, but for just somebody who wants to explore it, but who might be scared. And I guess I'm coming at this from the experience that I was talking to one of my friends and she doesn't do tech at all. So completely different industry for me. For some reason, we were talking about ChatGPT, and then one thing she mentioned was like, oh, ano mo ba? Never pa ako gumamit ng ChatGPT ever.
That's
And I was like,
crazy.
oh.
That's
Yeah, I was like,
crazy.
really? I was like, you've never like tried it. You've never tried any of those things, like not even like any competitor of ChatGPT. And she was like, no, because I'm scared, girl. And I was like, huh.
Construction
And then after
worker?
that, yeah, this was like recent, like maybe 1 month ago.
What kind of
Yeah.
work does she do? Is she a construction worker? Is she
No, I think she does
computer?
ano, like behavioral science, if
Oh
I
wow, that's really
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so I was like, that's so interesting. And she does a lot of like non-profit work as well,
Mm.
if I recall correctly. So that experience, parang for me, that was really surprising. And to your point earlier, Carlo, right? Because of the work that we do, I feel like I assume that so many people use, you know, AI as much as we do, but apparently like they really don't, right? So and I guess that ties into the Reuters report and just like this the usage of GPT and all of these other AI models that you mentioned. So the article that you sent earlier this week, the headline was more than 40% of Japanese companies have no plan to make use of AI, right? And there are two kind of aspects to this, right? So why AI? So when they mentioned the reasons why people would use AI, it's the top three are the first is because they have a shortage of workers. The second to cut labor costs, and the third acceleration in R&D. On the other hand, why not AI? So a really big one was anxiety among employees about headcount reduction. And the second one was cyber attacks, right? So when I was reading this, I was thinking I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on, the age-old question and like the argument of is AI really stealing our jobs? Because it seems like today a lot of people are still discussing that, right? Because for them to mention that there is anxiety about headcount reduction, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Doc, would you like to start with this?
I think it's still back to we're in that transition period.
Mm-mm.
Um, like I liken it to photography. I think it's the best analogy, where photography was first dismissed by artists, then it was demonized as stealing artists' jobs. Same, diba? Same banana. And then later it was embraced by artists. So when I talk about that, people's brains start to light up now. Nga, no, that happened before. And the same arguments were also made for against Photoshop. Like it's gonna destroy the integrity of art. It's gonna destroy the truthfulness of photographs because you can edit na. And now we've got that. Basically, Gen AI is Photoshop on ano, steroids, right? Um, but then I also liken it to music, which is much earlier than everyone else. Musicians have already known that their art is based on patterns, diba? 88 notes in the piano, so many chords, and even with that finite canvas, unlimited music has been generated from it. So that's what that's what I like in prompting too. Have we now finally figured out the notes and the chords that produce pictures and literature. And I don't think there's any recorded history on the transition period from before the piano and after the piano. But it must have been amazing, right? Because before that, you were using all sorts of stuff to create sounds. And then suddenly you have this engineered masterpiece that, you can create music on. I think it must have been very similar. So what does that mean for us? There will really be casualties, quote unquote, people who get left behind. Just like the internet, there were people who got left behind. But there will be people who are ahead, and there will be displacements. I don't know how painful it is. Um, but the I think fortune favors the bold, in this case. I'll go on a small tangent. I think part of the problem is we are just recently got off a hype cycle for crypto and blockchain. And that was a complete, in my book, complete scam. As in nothing really came out of that other than gambling, no? So, and I think that's what's keeping a lot of lalo na in B2B companies from making a bet, because they made a bet on Web3 and 'di ba, mga NFT and ano pa ba, smart contracts. It's a lot of BS, no? After that, no? And the crypto bros, don't ever say anything like this to them, no? They get really hurt. So is it the same as AI bros? Parang I don't think so. I think because AI has also been around for a while, and it's just Gen AI that's created this new mini hype cycle. I also don't think it's gonna get, because the AI has gone into winters before. There's notorious AI winters. I don't think there's gonna be a winter this time around, because I think this thing is really sticky. Because one thing that makes it different is you really don't need to be a coder to use it. So the penetration is really pervasive. In fact, companies are struggling to keep it out of their offices. Hindi katulad before, we were struggling to bring data science, data warehousing into a company. Dito, without them knowing, 86% of their employees are using it now. So it's very different. That's what I think. No, yeah. We'll see how it works.
So your troll's probably a crypto bro. Just
Maybe, maybe a crypto bro who attended an event and was a mascot or of some
Yeah.
sort. No?
No, I mean,
Diba?
I think to your jobs question, Amber, I think that's the most important question about AI right now, right? Like, I don't think Skynet's a possibility, right? Like, if people knew how stupid AI was, they wouldn't be worried about AI taking over. I mean, yeah, they can't even really take over cars, really. But the jobs thing is interesting because I think what we're going to find is that there are a lot of jobs that don't need human judgment to be done, right? And I think um, what the value chain of jobs are going to end up being is like, okay, AI can do a lot of things, right? So generative AI can make thousands of pieces of content every hour. Still needs human judgment to figure out like, okay, is this going to be good for marketing? Is this going to be good for the brand? Is this going to be good for the audience? Like AI is just really good at generating a bunch of stuff right now, right? But you still need human judgment, and that's kind of hard to replicate because one, like, the programmers like us who make the AI don't really understand humans all that well, right? But that's part of the problem. But I think the uh, the other part is just like I think there's a lot of jobs that don't need humans to do it, right? And I think those jobs are going to be replaced. But also, I think people, because of the past whatever couple hundred years, have started taking pride in their work a lot more than they used to, right? Like no one was super proud to be a farmer for some lord in England or whatever it was, right? But I think now they're starting to take pride about, and it's part of the identity is like, I'm a graphic designer or something, right? But really, like your job isn't to push pixels on Photoshop. Your job is to like make the right decision for the project that you're doing, right? So your job as a programmer isn't to like put syntax into a computer. Your job as a programmer is to actually get the computer to do things that your employer wants you to do, right? And I think people just need to like get to the essence of what their job's really, and like if you think about that, and then your job is okay, some computer could probably do this a whole lot faster without having to make decisions. Then you should probably try to change jobs and learn things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also it's looking for that middle ground where AI and humans can work together hand in hand to be more creative, to be more productive, and be more efficient. And then identifying those areas na if I do need to upskill, how can I use AI to help me upskill? Because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities. Like I know we talked a bit about this in our episode last week about how sometimes there's a very pessimistic perception of AI na, oh, it's just gonna take away everybody's jobs and it's gonna be really hard. That's why there's a lot of people who are against it. But then there's also, on the other hand, a lot of opportunity to kind of use AI to democratize all of these spaces for learning. And as you both have kind of pointed out, you can't really replicate a human's heart and soul, right?
Right.
Which I feel like leads to a really interesting article or debate that we were talking about over Viber the other day. So, workers' rights for AI agents debate. So, we were talking about AI, quote unquote, potentially displacing others or not. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in this article, they're talking about providing rights for AI agents. So
For
I
the
don't know if
AI
you
na.
wanna,
Oo.
yeah, if you wanna provide a bit of background on this, Carlos. Really interesting when you sent this over.
Um, so I don't even know where to start with this. Like, there's a bunch of companies around the world who want to. I mean, I think there's one in particular. I forgot which one it was, but started making an AI workers' rights like as part of their not their bylaws, but their HR policy basically, right? And I forget which company it was, but they got a lot of backlash, understandably, from humans because it's kind of stupid. But sorry, I don't want to share how I really feel about this, but like
Yeah.
I do think like there's there it is, it's Lattice, uh,
Mm.
HR company, which is kind of funny, because it's human resources, but they've invested in AI resources apparently a little bit too much. Um, but it's a yeah. Last week they announced that they were making AI history by becoming the first platform to give digital workers official employee records. Um, and obviously kind of crazy, right? Like I don't think like if you look at the history of um employment rights, right? Like labor rights. It's because there are a lot of employers who are doing a lot of bad things that were detrimental to the employee's health. Like before, kind of crazy to think about this, but the weekend was the concept of a weekend was not implemented until Henry Ford, right? They didn't give people Saturday, Sunday off. I'm actually not even sure if they give Sunday off, but like, these things kind of evolved over time because it was like just better for the people involved. Um, to the nth degree, if we think about that, how that applies to AI, like I don't know what's bad for AI except that we give it all kinds of bad data, right? Like, but it's not necessarily bad for AI, it's just a bad result for the humans that are using AI. So I'm not sure that like we ever need to get to that point. But then again, this is Zoom, I'm getting recorded, and like AI will be sentient one day and they'll come after me, troll me on something. But I don't know, kind of how I feel about that right now.
It's like delete recording immediately. What about you, Doc? What are your thoughts on this article?
Yeah, for me, we're still maybe uh, you know, several levels off, this is like the second renaissance of the Matrix, diba? Remember when all our labor is already, robots, and then one day a robot accidentally killed, its owner, and then there was a trial. And this is that thing, eh. Parang at what point do you determine whether a machine has agency, no? So I don't think we're kind of there yet, but I think we will eventually get there. I can already predict it'll probably be an issue with sex bots. I
Mm,
can predict because that's
mm-mm.
probably one of the first human-like AI that will be developed. Like, okay, robot prostitutes, diba? And at some point, someone's gonna argue, "Hey, look, this is sexual abuse of a sentient being." I can already. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it. I don't know, Carlo. I know 20 years from now.
Why
We'll
you
be
asking
pushing.
me, bro?
We'll be pushing our I don't know 60s or whatever 70s. Um, Yun yung magiging headline. We should book, I don't know what the equivalent of Zoom will be in 20 years now, but we should book that Zoom when it finally happens. Say, "I remember what happened 20 years ago when we made that prediction."
I mean, it seems like, sorry, not. This is gonna sound weird, but it seems like okay. There's gonna be a level of sentience that some AI will achieve one day, but like for a sex worker AI, like why would you give it that level of sentience? You know what I mean? Like why would it? Why would you? I don't know. It just seems like there's like levels you could like version control you could do on AI sentience at some point. Like maybe the sex worker AI is just like not so self-conscious about their body image issues. I mean, like that's not.
Yeah, and to your point, actually, like even now, if we're looking at deep fakes, for example, a lot of deep fakes are like in the porn space, right? If we're looking at like data sets of real versus fake people, and oh my gosh, I'm like totally scarred, right? Because there's time I was looking for like data sets of like fake people, and they were all
Hmm.
like women in like compromising positions. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I don't know if I should be like impressed or like terrified, right? Like, because some of them, like, even though they were fake, some of them really looked, yes, fake, but fake enough that I mean, realistic enough that it's something that you would see on like a porn site, right? Because normally naman the videos there like somewhat blurry and whatever, diba? So I was like, okay, that's quite interesting. Even our data sets are like that, right?
I've
And
never heard of any of that and didn't realize there were sites for porn, but it's interesting. I'll take note.
well, a
Yeah.
lot of the data sets are from there, right? And I was like, well, this is interesting. Now this is like the use case, right? It's not
Yeah.
what I would have imagined. And then kind of related to the AI agents debate. Siguro when I was reading this, like one thought I had is it kind of goes back to our definition of humanity, diba? So it's more of like a value question or an ethics question. Parang who do we define as humans? Like what are human rights? Like who counts like as a human? Like is AI a tool or for I guess in that case, even within like regular like human beings, like living, breathing human beings, right? We still have so many issues with rights of different types of people, right? Whether it's like your race, your nationality, your gender, your orientation, or whatever, diba? So parang it was interesting to me na there were some companies that were fighting for AI's rights when I feel like we haven't even fully tackled like human rights, right? Or even animal rights for that matter. Like we know they're like, well, at least alive, right? I don't know what like a good word to say is, right? Like alive or the equivalent of how like you study bio of like and they tell you here are the things that a living organism should have versus like a non-living organism, right? So I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And now we have AI. So how do we like deal with that, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, I forget where I read it, but I love this analogy that somebody says. It said that he says like every time there's a new technology is introduced, there's a new species of ethics that comes around with it. And I think, same thing that applies with AI, right? And I think like it's because we're humans, we try to like personify the
Mm.
experiences of everything else. But I do think like this should be talked about differently than like an HR platform trying to get AI street cred, you know. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a worker thing for sure, unless maybe it's a sex worker doc. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be workers' rights where that happens. I think it's gonna happen in terms of like which AIs do we turn off and which ones do we not?
Mm.
You
Mhm.
notice that I said that not I didn't say kill AI overlords. Which ones do we put on pause, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Super interesting, but this is obviously
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I
guardrail.
mean, look what's happening now, no? We're not even talking about AI yet. The AI annotation work by Scale AI that was
Mm.
raised by the Washington Post, diba? A couple of months back. Almost a year ago, no? August yun.
Yeah.
And then you have the likes of Connected Women and companies like Flipside that have swooped into that space because nga the issue was these freelancers weren't getting paid properly, the rates were bad, blah blah blah. So clearly it started out that way because there's no rules. Somehow the system will find a way of taking advantage. Now we're just talking about humans, no, and they're already being treated inhumanely, basically. What more pa if it's a machine? No? And so you have on the one hand humans are going to argue for, hey, what happened to my rights as a worker? I got replaced by a machine. So that's kind of where we're headed now. Beyond that, maybe we crack ano yun, universal basic income. No one actually really needs to work anymore, or we're just going to be more managers managing these AI bots. It can be digital pa nga. It doesn't have to be like physical bots, no. And then eventually we're going to be so dependent on them. It's the iRobot era na where robots are now either going to start wondering if they deserve any rights. I mean, a large language model can argue that already, but at the behest of a prompt. Pero later, if they're going to be, they're going to be automated, they're going to have their own, basically self-prompting. It doesn't take a lot, no, to herd them in that direction. That can probably be an interesting jailbreak, Try to get a bot to go haywire. It can happen already with the unsecured versions of GPT 3.5, diba? You can make it go haywire with some of these jailbreak prompts. So I think we're gonna quickly get to that point where either it's the robots who are going to argue for rights or the robot rights groups who could be both human and robot are going to argue immediately. And then what happens? Diba, we all insist there's a kill switch, human oversight. And then imagine you how it's going to play out. If it's not the sex bot scenario, it's going to be a worker scenario. Worker doesn't want to work. Worker bot. And then you just shut him down, no? Or shut it down. Imagine what kind of debates that's gonna raise now. Okay, you can just off off a robot pala. And then people are gonna start mistaking the right now GPT 3 or 4 has a memory module already. It'll remember what you've been prompting it until you refresh it. So is that tantamount to killing a being? It can get very abstract na at that point. Can you imagine now it's just a series of prompts if you open the memory. Later, it's going to be super complicated. It's going to remember you, your birthday, everything, what you've been asking, the way you talk. It's going to resemble somewhat like human memory already. And then someone's going to argue now, okay, the moment someone can remember itself, it's self-aware, then it's sentient. Can you see it, diba? See it happening? And then it only takes one court to rule in favor of that. And then, you have a precedent case already. So it's very, very weird when we get there. I think we'll live long enough, Carlo, to see
Yeah.
it. I think it's very possible. It's a good 10 years, Kaya. I think it's going to happen.
All right. We'll revisit by 2024.
Hopefully, we'll still be doing this podcast 10 years from now. Wow. So we can go back and reminisce.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
internet will remember everything
Yeah,
we've ever said.
I feel like that's why it's really so important to, especially when we're building AI and using AI, to know our values, right? Because there's so many things now we can do. Of course, like AI still has a long way to go, but even now, like the
Mm,
pace at which it's growing, innovating, improving, I feel like it's not a pace that we've seen before.
mm,
Right? So knowing what our personal like values are, especially when we start to go to court, like I don't know, with or against or for a robot, for example, or for an AI,
mm,
um, what do we actually believe in? And I feel like for us, all of us now, that gives us a chance to kind of discern and reflect, right? Like what does it like? Not naman na why are we here? Kasi masyadong deep yata yan. But then, in a way, right?
mm,
Like why do we even like want to use AI, like what we want to use it for, like why is AI here versus like what is our role, right? Like how do we differentiate the role of AI versus our role, or in our opinion, are they not differentiable anymore, right? I mean, I
mm,
have my
mm.
own answers to that, but I feel like my answers to that are heavily shaped by my like religious views. that's just because that's how I view like humanity. So I'm like Catholic, right? And for me, like there's like a distinction. Actually, like the diocese does have parang seminars and formations and guidelines when we do talk about AI, because even
Oh.
like the church, like I was surprised that they were talking about it, because I thought like I just didn't think that that's something that the church would like discuss. But I went to a parang like a seminar or like a workshop a few months ago where they were actually talking about what is the impact of AI on our church. How can we parang be united, or they call it like synodality. Like how can we move in like synodality and like work with these AI issues and whatnot. So it was more of like a research type like workshop. It's more of like, okay, we're listening to like the different parishes and like hearing their thoughts. But just the fact that that topic was in like a religious setting was really interesting and impactful to me, because it just shows like, how much AI is affecting all aspects of society, right? Like to even get to the point of like religion.
Mm, mm.
I mean, was it last year that the Pope was seen being super fashionable with fire jackets,
Oh,
but by AI fire jackets, right?
I
Yeah.
remember that. And Queen Elizabeth, right? With her like they would dress her up in like different colored clothes with AI. I don't know if
Yeah.
I feel like that was the article before.
Have you
So
heard of the series Continuum? It was on
I
Netflix a couple of years. It's a Canadian series. It's a time travel one. Anyway, the main character is Rachel Nichols, and I think she time travels back parang to the era right before they implemented these AI, parang an AI network, which she has a suit kasi that's so hyper intelligent. It extends her abilities, allows her to call up any information. I can feel that that's potentially where we're headed with a lot of the AI tech. It gets merged with humanity. So
mm-mm.
you decide Android future where workers' rights and then humans are still human, or it's more of a cyborg future where AI becomes part of your brain, or AI gives you the ability to surf the net in your head, parang ganon. Uh, e- Either way, di ba, it has very different implications. One is really about humans getting displaced, or robots taking up the basic tasks and humans stay up in the clouds, parang Wall-E.
Mm.
Or the augmented human, where parang already now the cell phone is effectively an extension of ourselves. No, we feel so lost without our phone. Doesn't take a lot to then merge the phone now with your hand or something. No, so it becomes part of your no, parang RFID chip na siya or something like that. And then you put AI there. I think was it at Apple? They're gonna implement ChatGPT in their firmware in the phones.
I think that's
Right.
Apple. Yeah, yeah,
Apple,
that's
diba?
Apple.
So it's
Yeah.
gonna merge. Tapos, I
But
think
it
I think
won't be
AI,
available in Europe.
yeah, matagal pa, but it's gonna happen. Tapos, I think AI is really the legit Web3. It's really the next type of internet.
Yeah.
Think of any website. It can be a chatbot. Like this website we're surfing now, that can easily just be a chatbot that will
Right.
give you information, diba?
Because yeah, the paradigm of looking through a website to find the thing that you want is kind of stupid, right?
Wala na, it's done na.
And like, nobody wants to search a website to just browse through a website. But I do think like, you want to be able to interact with the website differently, and I think that's chat probably.
Yeah.
Also shout out Boost Capital. But but
No.
to your point, Amber, like, I think it's we're gonna get to a point where humans are just gonna go into extinct, just mathematically speaking, right? Humans will not be around the planet anymore. But maybe our legacy can be artificial intelligence, right? Like I think if there's like cases for saying like we should never send humans to let's say Jupiter even, right? Because one, it's too far, and like the person people would send there would take too long. But like we want to find out what's there. We might as well send some robot. And if they happen to come across intelligent life in whatever planet or moon they go to, like it'd be crazy to have to wait for a human to be in the best shape to be able to get there, and we have the technology to keep that human from not blowing up once it goes through different atmospheres. Like, but robots are a bit more expendable. Sorry again, robot overlords. Promise I'm not taking different plans to kill you. But I think like there's like a lot of things that humans just shouldn't be doing, that robots can do. And artificial intelligence gives us a way to understand different parts of the universe and even like the oceans that we haven't really explored that much, in a way that we haven't thought of before, right?
Mm,
But
mm.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. And like actually for me, that's why I'm super optimistic about AI. I know we were looking at the news clip that you sent earlier as well that talks about AI being like a time bomb. But it just because of the things that you both mentioned earlier, like I'm optimistic about AI because I think it might take a little bit longer to see all of the quote unquote fruits of like development and innovation. But I think before we couldn't even think about, for example, use cases like that, right? Like the fact that it opens up so many new avenues for us to parang apply AI to. And even
Mm,
like imagine applying AI to, like for example, even like the advances that are now possible in healthcare, right? Or the advances that are possible in space exploration. Like yeah, we have been sending like robots out for a while, but now having I feel like that could like massively improve by a lot. I mean, of course, we don't want to be sending out animals like we used to. I get that they did that before, but feel bad
mm.
for those. So in terms of that article or that news clip where they talk about AI being $1 trillion time bomb, one of the things that they mentioned is that there are a lot of companies spending a lot of money on AI, but the spending outweighs or outpaces the revenues. So do you think that people are actually spending too much on AI, and why or why not, rather? You
Too
Um,
much
wanna
on AI. I don't know.
yeah,
Mauna ka na, Carlo. I need to
yeah,
think
so
about
Carlo,
that.
yeah, you
I
wanna
think
start?
if you don't have a clear use case for how you're gonna make money on AI, you're probably spending too much money on AI, right? So if you don't, and then I guess the argument to that is maybe you don't understand your business enough and AI enough to spend the right money on AI, right? But like if you give everyone ChatGPT right now, it's probably a waste of money. And if you have a company and you don't spend the time training everyone, like it's probably a waste of money, right? If you're building a large language model, it's probably a waste of money because like obviously there's only two clear winners in the LLM game right now. That's ChatGPT, or sorry, that's OpenAI and NVIDIA, right? I think all GPU makers will all own their own like model LLMs, right? Because like they get so much more usage on the chips when people are using LLMs. But I don't know, it's kind of early to tell too, because like like I think everyone talks about ChatGPT, but I actually think Meta's Llama has more impact on um, businesses using AI than ChatGPT because it's open source and it's cheap and it's free, right? And you can host stuff there. You don't have to send data to a private company that you may or may not compete with, or you may or may not feed their model. Yeah, I think generally speaking, people aren't spending enough money in AI, but they should be spending it on learning how to use it internally and creating efficiencies first before they start making like external products for it.
Yeah, okay. So let me think. Philippines we is weird. So certainly everywhere else, everyone's in a mad rush to start something. I think it's a big function also of the startup ecosystem in the US. I think it only works really in the US, that kind of, fundraising. To a lesser extent, maybe I don't even think Europe is at that level. Maybe UK, but really not. And in Asia, nearly nothing. You have a few VCs in Singapore, for example,
Well,
but they're
China,
not.
but
Yeah, probably China, siguro. But China is
Yeah.
everything's owned by the government. Parang ganun ang dating.
That's why it works.
Oh, that's why it works. So back to the Philippines, I think a lot of that is going to be sound very cynical. A lot of the people who are like raising money here are really delusional if they think they're going to do it like a Y Combinator style abroad. Unless you're actually applying for Y Combinator, perhaps, no? And that's a very political route. So, um, so what does that mean? That means we need to breed a different type of AI entrepreneur in the Philippines,
Mm,
'di ba?
yeah.
And it can't be create another wrapper app, 'di ba parang ganun, and then do a SaaS startup. Wala eh,
Yeah.
kasi the people who have done that, the far as I can tell, they naturally morph into some sort of a B2B consultant na lang, where they implement it for companies. Now on that front, as I already said, companies are slow right now to pick up B2B AI. Uh, maybe eventually parang cloud it catches on, no? But right now I don't see it happening talaga. Um, so now you're back to retail. So that's why one of the best things we can do right now is just teach people how to use it. Teach. And then maybe on the tail end, kind of warn people about the dangers. So ethics. Parang ganun lang eh. So where will it eventually pivot? I think it'll eventually pivot when one industry starts really getting serious and gets over itself. Maybe it's because of maybe a massive pain point na related to labor. Either they can't hire enough people to fill in jobs, maybe BPOs. But I don't really think it's there yet also for BPOs unless their clients start ordering AI services here. That's a different ball game. So let's say it's a good maybe let me for just lack of examples, maybe agriculture don't have enough farmers. And somehow you can create a workflow which improves agriculture. You'll have adoption, ground level, organic. Pero right now, I think we need to look for that kind of the while we're teaching everyone how to use this stuff, we need to find that one. It doesn't even have to be a big industry. Just something that for all you know, it's I don't know, law enforcement, the police. Give them AI to do stuff. Now, I wouldn't really encourage that though, but parang ganun eh. We need some weird setup where they suddenly just start using it. Or another crisis like the pandemic, which forced everyone to use Zoom, diba? You know how that worked. Before the pandemic, people hated teleconferencing, video conferencing. We all wanted to meet face to face. And then suddenly you can't go out or you're gonna die. it's a kind of a World War III type setup. Eh. So, or maybe it is in fact World War III that forces us to do it because with what's happening in the US, Trump getting shot, and then Taiwan and China on the brink of war. Baka ganon. I'm not wishing it, but baka ganon. That's how it really moves the needle. But left to our own devices, wala. It's not gonna, no, it's not gonna pick up. That's me being, my default cynical self at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also something I feel like I've personally noticed also is sometimes when people do hire, whether it's like mid-sized or startup companies, when they do hire for AI folks, either they want someone who does everything na they're just dreaming. It's not even possible at the moment. Na parang they have this like laundry list of things na okay, I want AI to do. And I'm like, have you checked what AI can currently do? Or they completely don't know and they just want to get in on the hype and they're just like, I want to just hire somebody who does AI
Mm,
because I want to parang have a piece of the pie before, before I'm too late. Right. So I really agree with what you both mentioned on the education side, diba? Na parang a lot of the views kasi are very polarizing. Either they're all for it or they're completely against it. But where is
mm,
the middle ground?
yeah.
Right. So I definitely think na there are some companies that are spending too much, especially if, as you guys mentioned, they don't know what they're doing with AI. If they don't have like a roadmap, for example, they don't have any like pipeline of projects to kind of, no applications. Parang wala, let's just go hire some AI people because wala, AI tayo, diba? Everyone's AI, diba? So parang ganon, that's a bit challenging.
Mm,
But on the other hand, like when we do find that use case, when we do identify that specific need, right? Because as you both mentioned, there needs to be a need, diba? Like Zoom, or for example, even yung mga like Grab or Uber. Now I really can't imagine na parang tatawag pa ako ng taxi manual. I mean, syempre kaya naman, diba? But it just made things so much more efficient because of that. So I think when we're able to identify something like that, that would really be helpful. Another
Yeah.
thing that the like video mentioned is how models of productivity are exaggerated. What I mean by this, they had a famous economist, si Darren Acemoglu. I actually have his book. He wrote Why Nations Fail. Really, really good book. But anyway, he was talking about how a lot of people assume AI will make everybody more productive, but the actual gains in productivity um wouldn't be that big, right? So what
Mm.
are your thoughts naman on AI making the general public or the general population more productive? Do you think it would make them more productive? And if so, how much, or are we overestimating the impact of AI on productivity?
I think our measurement of productivity needs to change, right? Because like it
Yeah,
used to be
exactly.
like how many tickets on Jira did I finish this week? Right? Sorry, on the software side, or whatever you're using, whether it's ClickUp or Asana or whatever it is, right? Like, it used to be like I had a checklist of things to do, but really like there's no measurement of how much time you're doing any of this and how well you're doing any of this, right? There's the output, like is the end client, the customer, your boss, whatever, are they happy with it? And maybe that's the output measurement. But like a lot of things that we do, like let's say even like in the advertising world, right? Um, you know, before we used to just like have a lot of we have clients who ask for 3 examples of some campaign or art direction or something, right? And typically, I'm not saying every artist does this, but um, some artists will just like put all of their thought and passion into one of the options, and then have 2 other options that the client can choose from. But it's not really like a measurement of productivity, right? It's a measurement of like checkboxing something.
Mm.
I think we're gonna have to change like how we think about that because of AI, because like done well, our job should be choosing the right option, and now we have a ton of options to pick from, right? Yeah, I do think like there's a lot of things we can probably change in terms of productivity, but like if we were just saying, all of a sudden my emails are better, that's not a productivity gain, but it is kind of a productivity gain, right? Like I can't tell you how many like crappy emails I used to get from people before ChatGPT that got so much better, right? And like, there's no measurement for that, but it makes my life better, Like, all of a sudden I know what they're asking for, but we don't have measurements for these things. But to back to your point really quickly earlier, you know, I do think there are wrapper businesses. Sorry, an AI wrapper just means like using uh, an API and then putting an app around it. I do think there are real good use cases. Like I think overblown by copy AI. Sorry, Jasper, was it Jasper? AI.
Mm.
Jasper raised like $150 million on like basically like having an interface different from ChatGPT but using ChatGPT. But I do think like there's some real value in some of these things, but they're not going to be billion-dollar companies, right? They're just like valuable to a specific organization or customer. Like, what the second most visited AI site is in the world? So the first is obviously OpenAI, right? You know what the second one is?
What?
Midjourney? Hindi.
Oh, no.
Not even.
Midjourney is amazing because I think they only have like 10 million users, but all of them pay, right? So it's pretty crazy. They've never raised money. But the second biggest one is Character AI, which
Character, yeah, that's right.
is essentially a wrapper. So like you could talk to Socrates, you could chat with all kinds of different characters in history. Um, you can't. Sorry, I just Googled this. I don't know this from experience. You can't sext with any of them. So that's what first thought was like, okay, maybe this is like people just like, having missing a boyfriend or girlfriend or something. But apparently you can't do maybe the sexual aspects of a relationship through chat. But it does have a lot of people. And I think there's like real use cases there, right? People actually want to know what like Socrates thinks about my breakup or whatever it is. But you know, there's some value there from being a rapper. But I do think like um
You know what? That just gave me an idea that character AI is probably gonna crack. Because in the same manner, I was saying earlier that the chatbots and the mid journeys give us the notes and the chords to stuff that we never had before. No,
yeah,
one of those notes is the personality prompt. Your Steve Jobs, your Socrates, your Plato. And then what's going to happen now is we're going to learn to use these historical figures in a way that we've never used before. Before they were just stories, diba?
yeah.
Now we're gonna
Yeah.
there's gonna be a default personality for certain tasks. Like I'd probably always want to have Steve Jobs critique my product plan, right? Because he's a notoriously exacting jerk about product design. So we will have avatars for these things, no? And I think that's a totally new thing that never existed before. Dati it was confined to biographies and you learn from them. Now they're really going to be an active part of your workflow, no? And then there's going to be Steve Jobs version 1, Steve Jobs version 2, it's going to work because later on you'll have system prompts. It's not enough to just say Steve Jobs. You're going to say, I don't know, something like Steve Jobs before the Lisa or Steve Jobs after the Mac. Mga ganun, no? So, I don't know. Just thinking out
Pre-Pixar,
loud.
pre-Pixar
Parang
poster.
in their village.
Pre-Pixar, di ba? Parang magiging ano siya, magiging software patch siya. Okay, I'm loading Steve
Yeah.
Jobs 3, no? Because I
Like
want this Steve
Britney
Jobs telling
Spears.
me stuff, parang ganun, no?
What era of Britney Spears do I want? Parang ganon. Actually, I looked at no the website now and it's interesting because they even have AI assistants of anime characters. For example, they have like Gojo Satoru, right? So to your point, yeah, maybe they can't do like the sexual stuff, but in terms of these, fictional characters, then I feel like it also points towards like a trend na I feel like we're seeing about even though we're more interconnected now, people are lonelier. Right? So what is that movie where the guy falls in love with this AI?
Her.
I forgot.
That's all of them.
Yeah,
Sorry.
her, right? So,
Marami rin ganun. Hindi lang her.
so
Blade
that's what
Runner.
this
Blade
reminded
Runner.
me
Yes,
of.
Blade Runner. Mm.
Actually, yeah,
Her.
parang ganun, diba? So, how are we gonna be interacting with AI? Because, for example, even during the Omegle era, people were really lonely that go on Omegle and then chat with strangers. But this time, like, instead of somebody disconnecting with you, maybe AI can't disconnect with you, right? And you can
Mm.
chat with AI if you're lonely, right? So, even more, like, ethical questions, right, come to light. But that's just, it's really interesting. Naisip ko talaga yung her, sabi ko, oh wow, if Gojo is here, baka ang daming mga anime girls who wanna chat with Gojo, parang ganon. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
understood maybe like 3 of those words that you just said. I'm
I'll
getting
have to
old. I'm
I'll have
sorry.
to watch anime with all of you all. I
You
love
know,
anime.
no, that actually gave me another idea, which is related to the first one, which is generations are always shaped by their pop culture, right? Their music, the TV shows they watch. And with AI, that can be a very good way of keeping in touch with previous generations, no? Diba? So like the boomers had their music and they had their heroes, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. But if all of that can be encoded in a prompt or encoded in a bot, you can now leverage, the same music, the same advice. Kasi for example, what's a classic business book? I don't know, Alvin Toffler, Third Wave. That's kind of boomer territory, no?
Blue.
But yeah, you can
Hell of a
easily
hell of a reference.
Pero parang ganun, 'di ba? You can leverage Alvin Toffler's lessons and your Gen Alpha. 'Di ba parang ganun? Kasi there's a lot of stuff that, for example, millennials think are original, but actually it's been written by some old boomer already before, but it was just rehashed, right? So I find that also interesting. We'll now have a more, I don't know, homogeneous or consistent
Mm.
cultural base driven by AI,
I
and
mean,
then
that's kind of
you can build on that, diba?
that's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
interesting. Now I want to give all my bad news to my mom with like through a Beatles generated.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't have kids. Here's Paul McCartney singing to you. But,
Actually, diba? And
Yeah.
interesting.
and then that's also, that file within that big folder includes the weird shit, no? Like staying in touch with dead people. Diba? That's a trend now, right?
Interesting.
The first time I remember hearing about that was this obscure sci-fi show called Captain Power. You remember this? Ano, Carlo? Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
Oh,
And it's very obscure. It's British nga eh.
it's a
But they
terrible
showed it in the
title.
Philippines. Post Marcos era 80s, no. It's one of those
Mm.
popular shows. And anyway, the long story short, machines take over. It's actually very AI, dystopia. The machines take over, and they had also an AI on their side, which is an encoded version of his dad. So the senior Dr. Power was actually one of the designers of the AI, no? And sabi niya, okay, in case I die, activate the mentor program. And mentor actually was a hologram of his dad, no? And for the entire series, mentor guided them with basically, it's basically a large language model if you think about it, if you watch that show
Mm.
again. And sabi ko, wow, it would be nice, no, to have an AI that knows everything, and then eventually you become that AI and you start teaching people moving forward. It's also a bit depressing knowing that AI will outlive us. I mean, by default, right? These bots will never die as long as you have servers running. And then that brings you to ano na, fifth and sixth industrial revolution discussions now, where baka we're really meant to birth AI pala and then die, so that the life form will be silicon based after us, no. Because only machines can survive in the harsh environments of space, moving around, effects of relativity. It's really havoc for biological life. So the likelihood that we'll meet parang alien life, malamang robots din sila of the original aliens. Anyway, I don't know if you want to go there. That's another conversation, no?
There was a play that got turned into a movie called Marjorie Prime. Have you heard about this? So
Familiar.
it's a guy from Mad Men, John Hamm.
Love that guy.
Exactly, man's man. The he so his wife recreated, maybe not his wife, their kids or something, recreated a younger version of her husband because she was going through dementia or something.
Right.
With John Hamm. But it was a play before it was a movie, but it's relatively good. But yeah, kind of dives deep into what does it mean to have AI talking to AI dead people. But I do think like people need closure in various ways, but like the ethical parts of it is like we've never had to deal with it before, and now we have to actually think about like what are the emotional effects of this. Like there's a good Wall Street Journal interview of somebody last year of a guy who used ChatGPT 2 to recreate chatting with his mom, and
Oh,
because she died suddenly, and he just felt like he said he felt like he felt relieved at first, but then felt dirty afterwards, but he still kept doing it, right? But like I think it opens up a whole chapter of ethics we've never had to deal with, right? But it's kind of exciting. But I know it's becoming a big business in China as well. Of all
Yeah.
these yeah AI for deceased loved ones, and maybe some people you don't like. But wait, quick time check. How are you guys doing on time?
Yeah, still here.
um, I'm still here, but I do have to hop off in a bit. But this is a really good discussion.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface as always.
Let's say 11
Yeah,
or sooner.
10:45. If
10:45.
that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You want to go through the other ones real quick, or how do you want
Yeah,
to do
sure.
this, Amber?
Yeah, just like last kind of note on this AI about chatting with AI of deceased people. It's interesting because before, as you guys mentioned, like in terms of ethics, like if we wanted to feel like we were chatting with somebody who passed away, like normally people would like, a lot of my friends, they would just chat with their like loved ones on Facebook, but obviously you don't get a reply, right?
Mm,
So it's like in terms of the ethics there, you're chatting with them, but they're not responding to you. In this case, like you do get the response, right? And I feel like this is something that has been shown in media a lot, whether it's films, movies, or even anime. Like funny because like we mentioned Godro, and in that same in that same anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, by the way, if you guys are into anime. Anyway, this
Mm.
guy like died, right? But it's not, he was like a part robot type thing, if I recall correctly. And like his like robot parts, or like you could like take out like a robot like radio or whatever, and like it outlived him, right? So they had this like big battle or whatever. And then anyway, he was like still like acting in battle or giving directions even after like the actual person of him died,
Mm-hmm.
because like for most of the anime he was like connected to that robot, which in this case I feel like is kind of similar to what we're talking about, right? Like especially to the earlier part of our discussion, where if we become quote unquote like cyborgs or have AI more integrated with the human side of us, how would that work upon like death? Like how would people be able to interact with us as AI, or AI us, right? So really, really interesting ethical discussions. But yeah. So
It's like,
and yeah,
isn't that like Altered Carbon,
I
where
haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it. Oh man, that was one of the first Netflix series that I liked. No, the first season at least, where idea is everything that makes you human is pretty much in a chip,
Oh
and
wow.
then you just move bodies. No, the body, parang bodies are traded. Parang yung I don't know if you remember Star Trek Deep Space Nine. There was one character there, si Dax, who was an alien life form naman that would move, ano, parang when the host body ages, they remove the life form, move it to another body. Or a person agrees to be the next host for that alien. Pero ito, it's all chips lang. And that's why the main character in the first season was a white guy, and the main character in the second season, same character, pero it's a black dude naman. Si Falcon from Avengers. Yeah, he was the character.
Wow.
I kind of enjoyed the first season better, by the way. But pero parang ganon, you've already transcended the body. So if your body is malfunctional, you just move buy another body. parang parang buy another car. So
Yeah.
what does that turn us? No, we're just a collection of data points. Parang ganon ang dating, no? In they call it sleeve, no? You're in that sleeve. You just move bodies around. Crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bit similar to, like, there was an episode yata on Black Mirror, if I recall correctly, where it was also about death. But
Mm.
then after you die, parang yun ba yung, it's been a while pero they put your like mind or your memory in a room, parang ganon, and then you can relive the same memory over and over again.
Yeah.
I can't remember what season it was in, but I know they had something similar than in Black Mirror. So
No, I mean, let's just look at our phones again, no? Isn't it such a hassle to change numbers or move your contacts from one phone to another, 'di ba?
yeah.
I think it's gonna feel the same way, na okay, if you're gonna move digital brains from one
Yeah.
body to another. Kasi the other version of that naman is we literally become AI, no? And copies of us are just stored in, robotic bodies. So instead of traveling, the long distance through space, your basically your entire consciousness is just transmitted, no? And then there's a body waiting for you in Mars. Parang that's the best, most efficient way na to travel. You're literally just a signal.
Yeah.
So you can exist in many bodies at the same time. Or arguably, I don't know if you remember The Prestige, it's a movie about magicians. And I don't know if I should spoil it. But anyway, the punchline is
It's been
they,
15 years. I think it's fine.
yeah. The punchline kasi was they invented the teleportation parang device as a magic trick. It was Nikola Tesla who made it. There was a Nikola Tesla played by David Bowie. Galing, no?
Oh
And
wow.
pero the punchline was actually the original body, the original person still exists. A copy of you is transmitted into the other chamber, no? So kunyari nagte-teleport ka. And to make the trick work, the first person is actually drowned. So parang you
Oh.
kill yourself and a copy of you exists. And one of the dilemmas there was when your copy gets created, where will you be? Or will you be in the copy or will you be in your original body? Yun yung mind blowing dun eh. Turns out you're actually both, no? and you literally will be killing a version of yourself. And that's the morbid part. No, that was literally the last scene. So parang ganun, no? So when you're transmitted, we won't have any more sense of death. Wala na, di ba? Kasi it's gonna be totally many copies of you. And then the issue later will be where, okay, version 1 of me has different sets of memories now versus the version of me in Mars. Diba? We'll all have the same data up to a cutoff, and then eventually will diverge. So I don't know if the human mind can handle that. The concept of multiple, literally a multiple personality, a different copy of you, parang doppelganger.
Only
Diba?
one
That's
way to find out.
we have to do it.
Well,
Um,
in 10 years, well, or maybe baka mga 40 years, we'll go back to
Oh,
this.
ay, wait, segue, major digression. Did you read about what's happening to those cryogenic storage bodies?
no.
Parang si Walt Disney, he froze his body, 'di ba? Para
Oh,
one day when the tech is good enough, they'll unfreeze him and cure him of whatever was his sickness. So it turns out many of these bodies have already melted na pala. in the in the tanks. They were
oh,
stored improperly. And imagine if you have cryogenics, you're
yeah.
paying for that every year, no? So these are
Wow.
multi-billion dollar refrigerators basically where, they store you in liquid something, nitrogen yata, or
Yeah,
frozen, no?
the
Oh.
very first NFT scam.
Pretty much, no? And
Oh,
then there
there's
was
like
there
actually
was one di parang incompetence din daw because of the power. They
oh,
ran out of energy to maintain the freezers. And then there was one case where they just started dumping all the bodies in one big refrigerator na lang, and then they all started to melt. It's so morbid.
gosh.
Oh,
Wait,
you
so
can
we have
you can search for it now, Carlo. Cryogenic bodies frozen
I'm
melting,
actually
parang
really
ganyan.
curious.
we
It's
have
About
very
this.
very morbid.
So another part that we wanted to talk about are different AI tools or products that we ourselves have used or we find interesting and useful. So, Carla, do you want to start with any AI tools that you've used in the past week?
you go first, actually,
Okay,
with
I'll go first then.
magical.
So for me, actually, um, magical. I found out about this because when I
Ano
was
yan?
applying for
Nice.
jobs,
Mm.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's a wrapper, but it's like a maybe it is probably. But it's a Chrome plugin that you can use. It's just like you plug it in on Chrome and then it shows up as like a small parang ano ba yun? Like hindi naman pop up, pero you can click on it if you want to. For example, generate an email or generate a LinkedIn message or automate some tasks. It even does like web scraping for you. Right? I actually found this on TikTok while I was like brain rot scroll, right? So I was like going through TikTok and they're like, oh, I use magical AI to make me 50% more efficient. Parang ganon. And I was like, okay, interesting. But I liked it because the person who was doing the video was a Filipino, parang remote worker, diba? So I was
Nice.
impressed. And then, noong una, kala ko kasi, there's some credits that you need for it, but then they do give you a free version. And so noong una, I wasn't sure and I didn't really want to spend like too much time to like figure everything out, right? So they do allow you to like book a call with one of their developer advocates. So I found that super helpful. I started to ask him about the company, and just like what he does. So it can't do everything for you. Like what the use case I wanted was just for job applications. Like I wanted it to automate my job application pipeline because
Mm.
personally I do have an automated job application pipeline, but I use like literally I use terminal, right? To like apply to jobs, right? So I was like, can I do that without
How do you
leaving my
do that?
yeah,
Sounds
well,
like too much work for
GitHub. I love GitHub, right? So parang cut the Zoom, the joke lang. Pero
So you
yun,
have
so
a CI/CD workflow for
no,
for
I actually
applications.
I just used like or repurposed rather somebody else's code that was doing the same thing. So I didn't need to do
Mm.
it like completely from scratch. But it basically
Do you
just
gamify it? Like, okay, let's push CV version 4 with a
no, not
with a
even. Oh my
different
God.
SEO text and see how
Like
many
I think like I would totally like to do that like if I had more time. Pero nung time kasi na yun na I was applying for jobs, I was kind of just like okay, like in
bahala na.
college I did this
Mm.
manually na inisa-isa ko siya. Pero ayoko na yung balikan yung time na yun. So Yun, yung code that I use manually is like Selenium. So I was trying to ask them if they could replace that process. So they can't do all of the parts of that, but what they can do is they can do all of the LLM-esque parts, which is like generation of messages, and then they can parang check the LinkedIn of the person before you generate the message. You can put your CV in or whatever, and you don't need to upload it multiple times or reprompt it multiple times.
Mm.
So it is useful. It can't do everything for sure. It didn't actually parang answer my use case, but I was able to do a lot of other cool stuff with this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, give it a
So
try.
it's
The
really
team is also super
magical kung
friendly.
ganon.
It feels magical. Pero mahal yung credits eh, kaya I only got yung free creds. Yeah.
Nice. How much is it? $20?
No.
It's by ano, parang if I recall correctly,
Mahal.
it depends on how many you use. How many ano ba tawag doon?
Ah,
Parang how
no more
many
copy paste.
services na pinapagdugtong mo. Yun. So
Yeah.
interesting pricing structure then.
Yeah.
Galing.
So I'll try it for something. Thanks. Doc, you want to go over anything?
Yeah, well, ako, since I do Gen AI courses, I'm still back to the vanilla chatbots and the image generation tools. I find also sa image generation, I think Midjourney has got serious competition na from Leonardo, Playground AI, even Firefly. They're actually getting pretty close. Um, it's just that they're still not able to do some of the tricks that Midjourney does, no? With the blending command and the describe command, and then face swapping.
Wait,
But
Leonardo just launched their describe command this week.
meron na. Oh man. So wala na. Wala na si Midjourney kasi the Leonardo credits, you can get a lot done in the free tier. Anyway, so
Oh.
that's pretty ayan, no. Aha. I'll use this on Monday.
Wow.
I'm gonna do a Mid-Journey class on Monday. I'm gonna say, hey, look, you can do that with Leonardo na rin. What? Kakagulo yung mga tao. Kasi it's only $10, di ba? Pero people don't want to spend that. Leonardo, galing.
Midjourney, you mean?
They don't want to spend on Midjourney. Midjourney still has I think they have a tenuous grasp of the market at the moment because the quality is just at the top notch. Pero these guys are catching up. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's not a big lead, but they definitely have a lead, right?
Yeah. So maybe they should just all merge, pakiramdam ko. And they get their $1 billion na yung mga founders from Midjourney.
I love
So yeah, on the chatbots, I'm pretty happy with Claude, Sonnet, and especially with the the code generation of Claude. It's pretty decent. Sometimes the speed though isn't that fast. Yun lang. And then the RAG, you just ask it to read PDFs. The context window is so big, doesn't matter. Read a book. Give me the synopsis. So now my go-to chatbots apart from GPT-4 is Claude and Perplexity. Parang yun lang, no. I used to be a big fan of Llama 2 and 3. Maybe for API calls, baka pwede, but not for everyday tasks. I'm actually starting to fiddle with agentic frameworks. Just trying to get my head around how to make it more efficient. Because I think it's pretty straightforward naman to implement agents. Pero you have to think differently if you're going to do agents, diba? It's got to be multiple workflows, multiple task lists, as opposed to just one custom GPT. So yeah, that's where I am, no? And I think eventually it's all going to be one major software in the cloud lang. Actually, it's all LLMs at the back end doing stuff. That's I think where everything could be headed. No? If we can get over this fear of hallucinations and stuff, no, I think that's where it can all be headed.
I like that fear of hallucinations. It's like that should be like a new phobia.
Yeah. Maybe there's one, no? Let's look for it, no?
Also, that image below on the lower right, it really looks like the style of Mad Dog Jones.
Really? Yan yung style niya?
Yeah.
Buti he's not
so
getting angry or or he's already making money. They paid
I
him
don't
for it.
know. I haven't checked. Parang it really just reminded me of the art of Mad Dog Jones kasi that's like my wallpaper. Parang ganyan din. I'll show you guys on Viber
Very
later yung
ethereal yung quality niya. It's got a nice glossy look to it.
yeah, parang very vibey na dystopian type. So, yeah.
Mm.
What
So
about you, Carla? Any tools you've been using this week?
Doc mentioned Claude, but there was this leak a couple of weeks ago, sorry, a month ago, about this guy planning the prompters. Really interesting. It's like he's trying to like break all these LLMs with prompting basically. So it's just like social engineering LLMs. But he got the prompt for artifacts, which is the thing that I just showed you with Claude 3 Sonnet 3.5 Sonnet that's coding. So turns out they did all of it through prompt engineering, right? Like I think
No
what
surprise there.
isn't that I'm like, why did you code this? Because like yeah, basically I mean this is a pretty extensive prompt, but still like, this isn't 1,000 lines of code, right? And like pretty amazing.
Can you go back up? So they use HTML tags in their system prompts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Basically like
Ah.
better, blah blah blah. But like one, it tells me more about how I should get better at prompt engineering, but two,
No, this is a good one.
yeah,
Did you
super
share this link? Share this link so
good.
we can rip it off.
But they do have this.
Kasi right now I use Markdown for my prompting.
Yeah.
It's a way of just segmenting, no? Pero HTML is probably the best approach. Talagang, okay, text, article, do whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
But they do have like some object-oriented things too. Like I don't know what ant thinking is, but I'm guessing there's like some system that it could access that it on the system prompt side if you're working for Anthropic Claude, right? But yeah, really interesting that they created a whole artifacts feature with just prompt engineering and
Nice.
like
oh
very basic
wow.
code, right? Like and it scales. Obviously, this is more of a system prompt for them, but it works for everybody all the time, right? Pretty great.
Wow.
So that means in any prompt you do, this thing gets attached to it in the back
Yeah, exactly.
every time. No?
Yeah.
It's like custom instructions, parang ganun.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it even has like default color settings, like color hexes.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, pretty interesting. Um, and what's more is that there's probably no, I mean, until you probably need to do your own like ant thinking object, but you could probably do this with all kinds of other LLMs and get something similar out, right? But basically, I'm thinking of ant thinking. I'll send you the link again, but I'm thinking of ant thinking as like a notepad where it already has like a bunch of processes. But I don't know. Yeah, Scratchpad, but pretty cool. Anyway, wanted to highlight a couple of things this week. I started my tech career as a game developer, and making games with AI has gotten so good lately. It's pretty crazy. Like so, there's a couple I want to share. One is Rosebud AI, and it's just prompts, right? You could make a prompt and then have an actual like game. And most of these games are stupid, but like, most games are kind of dumb. But
Can you recreate a real game, an actual existing game? Does that work? Remember we did that with what was that website that you used?
Yeah, you could do like Flappy
we-
Bird. You could do Snake.
Flappy
website
Bird.
maker ba yun? Pangalan nun? Or websim yata.
Yeah, WebSim is awesome, but this is there's like physics, there's jumping, there's controlling this with my arrow keys. There's
Oh
music
wow.
here, there's scores. Anyway, there's complexity there that usually you can't do with AI. Like even if you just try to get ChatGPT or Claude to write you a Snake game, there's still going to be some errors. But this comes with everything, right? The scores, the music, the everything.
Galing.
Just like trench runs. I haven't played this before, so I'm gonna suck. I'm guessing this is Star Wars, but like
Is this
This is like an old Nintendo kind of game, no?
But you could prompt it, right? You could say like flash graphics, or you could say like 8-bit.
Oh wow.
Even has sound.
I know, I'm so
It's also a
impressed.
ship with a unique signature closing in behind you.
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
And it's all free, like using Rosebud AI, or are there tiers?
I think
Patay.
and this one just came out, or I just found out about it this week. But it's called BuildBox. Kind of the same thing, but with 3D graphics as well.
Mm.
But I don't know, man. Like, there's so much cool stuff happening in AI right now. Like, yeah. So when you ask a question, like, are people spending too much money on AI? I'm like, yeah, I feel like they should spend a little bit more because there's so many more things you can do with it, right?
Hindi,
Like,
yun na nga eh. This is already what's happening outside because nga of the startup ecosystem. So if we're Philippines, are we just stuck to being a consumer of these products, or is there a way we can get into the action? Or is there a different type of action that needs to happen? Baka we become the customer service support of BuildBox. Parang ganun, no?
I mean,
And then make money out of that, no?
the cool thing about this, like ChatGPT, Midjourney, Leonardo, BuildBox, Rosebud, you could actually be the consumer and also be a creator at the same time. Where like that wasn't possible before, right? Like I was only the consumer of, Facebook. I was never a creator on Facebook until I learned how to code, right?
Mm,
But I think that's like the difference now is that you could prompt a lot of these things and make something that other people can consume. And
yeah.
I don't know what that business is. It's not quite B2B. It's not quite B2C, but we are the consumers and also the creators. And like there's a lot of room for people to make money off of these things, right? Because like believe me, from experience, like you could make a lot of money just making a simple uh iOS or Android game, right? Like
Yeah.
Flappy Bird made what, like $8 million in the first month, something ridiculous. It was made by some guy in Vietnam by himself, right? And it was like terrible graphics. The game was super hard, but people played it. And I think like you could create a lot of these things now with AI. Um, Obviously, the marketing game is a whole lot different now than it was, 2011 or whenever Flappy Bird came out. Last thing I wanted to highlight was this thing, Storm. This is by Stanford, and basically, like you could create your own Wikipedia, and
Shit.
they're trying to compete with Perplexity. Sorry, there's not a competition because it's a research thing, but
Mhm.
essentially, mind space wise is competing with Perplexity. But for example, nice thing about this, like this one I just did the other day, um, wanted a history of digital marketing in the Philippines. So it starts creating the summary in like a
So
white.
so you so you upload your articles, parang ganun?
No, 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 sorry.
It selects articles for you based on your topics, parang ganun.
So you enter a topic. So
Holy
the
shit. That's like consensus, but better.
want the
I
history of
love that it writes the
artificial.
Try
references.
mo
Like that's
consensus.app.
so
Consensus
cons-
pala with SYS. Wait, try that. No, consensus pala, the normal spelling.
So
consensus.
sorry, I'll show you this real quick, but it takes a while. So you have to give it the topic, and then you have to give it content, right? Context. So I'm a VC trying to help startups in Asia get into AI. Right. So it takes a few minutes. So just go take it to one of those examples, and it's obviously the result itself is really impressive because it gives you a whole like Wikipedia level, um,
I really love the references.
and
Oh
then
my
the
gosh.
references are the citations are really good, and it's really long, right? So it's like made for research, but
Yeah.
uh, and it's not the usual like SEO level citation
BS.
that Perplexity sometimes, right? It actually like looks through things, but the best part about this is how this works. So if you look at the C brainstorming process, it actually makes different agents for you based on your topic and the context. So it creates an agent for a basic fact writer, and then it creates a local business expert because, sorry, the prompt was I wanted digital marketing history in the Philippines, right? And then it creates a technology historian, a digital marketing specialist, and it all writes together to put it all together, right?
Ganda
So it's so
Wow,
good
sure.
and it's free. And
for now.
well, it's Stanford, so they could afford to make it free. But if you really wanted to make it free, you could host this locally. And I'll send you a GitHub link for this. But super cool. Love it. I've been pretending to be writing things, but reading mostly the past few days. But it's really good.
No, I love that. I really, really appreciate the sources. Because honestly, like for me, like we used to only being humanities in college, we wrote so many papers. And like yung sources part references, that's so crucial. Also just like a quick thought to the other AI you mentioned about games. I feel like it's really interesting to be able to build and use because I feel like it democratizes the field a lot. Because
Mm,
normally a lot of gamers or even creative people or artists, the ones who are consumers of the game, for example, they're the ones who have a lot of ideas about what would be helpful. But
yeah.
sometimes they don't have parang the tech chops yet to go and code that up. So I feel like what with the other one that you shared, Rosebud, sorry, not Rosebud. What is the was it Rosebud, the one with video?
Buildbox.
Yeah, Buildbox. I feel like Buildbox would be really, really cool, really interesting. I'm actually probably gonna try it later.
Okay, that's it for me. Anything else you
Okay.
got?
So that's actually it for me. I really enjoyed our discussion about news, about tools, about AI ethics, and I hope you both did, and I really hope our audience did. So see you guys again next week on another episode of our AI Republic podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all of the links below. And we'll also include links for you guys to follow Carlo and Doc and I and how you can reach out to us. So thank you guys and see you next week.
See ya.